The story opens in a dimly lit studio, where the air is thick with the scent of oil paint and turpentine. The walls are lined with half-finished canvases, portraits of noblemen, lovers, and rivals, each rendered with exquisite detail, yet all lacking something intangible, something alive. Elias Vorn, a gaunt and hollow-eyed painter, stands before his latest work, a portrait of Lady Seraphine, a woman of striking beauty and cruel charm. His brush moves with precision, but his hands tremble with frustration. No matter how perfectly he captures the curve of her lips or the glint in her eyes, the painting remains lifeless, a mere imitation. If only I could trap her soul in the canvas, he mutters, unaware of the weight of his words. That night, as a storm rages outside, Elias collapses into a feverish sleep. In his dreams, he finds himself standing before an eerie, shifting canvas, one that seems to breathe. A figure cloaked in shadows materializes, its voice a whisper like dry parchment. You crave life in your art? Then give it life. A skeletal hand extends, offering a vial of thick, crimson paint that glistens unnaturally in the dim light. A drop of your blood, a drop of theirs, and the painting shall live. Elias wakes in a cold sweat, the words seared into his mind. At first, he dismisses it as madness, but then his eyes fall upon the unfinished portrait of Lady Seraphine. The desire gnaws at him. With a trembling hand, he pricks his finger, letting a single drop of blood fall into his paint. Then, in a moment of reckless desperation, he steals into Lady Seraphine's chambers as she sleeps, brushing a single drop of her blood into the mixture. The next morning, he completes the portrait in a frenzied rush. The moment the final stroke is made, the air in the room grows heavy. The painted eyes of Lady Seraphine blink. Elias staggers back in horror, but also in awe. The portrait is perfect. The colors pulse with vitality, the expression shifting subtly as if the woman herself were trapped within. Then, the news spreads. Lady Seraphine has vanished without a trace. Elias should be terrified, but instead, he feels something far worse, triumph. For the first time, his art is alive. The morning after completing Lady Seraphine's portrait, Elias wakes to a silence heavier than any he has known before. The air in his studio is thick, clinging to his skin like damp velvet. His eyes dart immediately to the painting, and his breath catches. Her eyes are open, not in the way of a trick of the light, not in the way a viewer might imagine life in a still image. No, the painted irises have turned, following him as he stumbles from his bed. The lips, once frozen in a polite noblewoman's smile, now curl in something closer to a snarl. The brushstrokes of her gown seem to shift, as if disturbed by an unfelt breeze. A knock at the door shatters the moment. A servant, breathless, delivers the news. Lady Seraphine is missing, vanished from her locked chambers, no sign of struggle, no trace left behind. The household is in chaos. The city watch has been summoned. Elias barely hears the rest. His pulse roars in his ears as he stares at the portrait. It worked. That night, he does not sleep. He sits before the painting, watching as the expression shifts, fear, fury, pleading. When he presses a trembling hand to the canvas, the surface yields slightly, like skin over a slow-beating heart. A sound escapes the painting. A whisper. Let me out. Elias jerks back, overturning his chair. The voice is unmistakably Seraphine's, but distorted, as if echoing from the bottom of a well. The painted hands press against the canvas from within, fingers splayed like a prisoner against glass. He should burn it. He should scream for the authorities, confess his madness. Instead, he leans closer. You're perfect now, he murmurs. The portrait stills. Then, horrifyingly, it smiles. By dawn, the whispers have stopped. The painting has settled into serene stillness, but the eyes remain alive, watching, hungry, and Elias, heart pounding with something between terror and exhilaration, picks up his brush. He has so many more portraits to paint. Years have passed since Elias first discovered the terrible secret of his art. His once modest studio has expanded into a sprawling gallery, a cathedral of canvases that breathe in the flickering candlelight. The air hums with whispers, pleas, curses, the occasional scream, though no one else seems to hear them. Visitors come to marvel at Elias's work, unaware of the truth. They praise the way his subjects seem to live on the canvas, their eyes tracking movement, their expressions shifting when no one is looking directly at them. Some even claim to recognize the faces, missing nobles, vanished rivals, lost lovers, but no one dares voice their suspicions aloud. Not when Elias Vorn is the most celebrated painter of the age. At night, when the gallery is empty, the paintings wake. Their mouths stretch in silent howls. Their fingers claw at the prison of gesso and oil. The portraits of those who wronged Elias, the critic who mocked him, the merchant who cheated him, the lover who betrayed him, twist in perpetual anguish, their faces warping with hatred. Others, like Lady Seraphine, have grown eerily still, their souls hollowed out by decades of captivity. Elias walks among them like a warden, pausing before each to admire his handiwork. "You're all immortal now," he tells them, running a finger down a canvas that shudders at his touch. But something is changing. The newer paintings resist him. Their eyes burn with defiance. Their whispers have become a chorus, rising in volume until Elias can hear them even in his dreams. "You will join us! You will join us! You will—" He wakes in a cold sweat, his hands stained with paint he doesn't remember using. On the easel beside his bed, a half-finished self-portrait stares back at him. The eyes are already alive, and they are hungry. The years have gnawed at Elias like a starving thing. His hands, once steady, now tremble over the canvas. His reflection in the tarnished studio mirror shows a man eroded by time. Hollow cheeks, milky eyes, veins like cracks in porcelain. But his masterpiece remains unfinished. Himself. The self-portrait dominates the easel, nearly complete. He has painted his likeness 100 times before, but never like this. Never with intention. The pigments swirl unnaturally, the oils refusing to dry, as though the canvas rejects his image. Or perhaps it simply waits. The gallery watches. From their frames, his collected souls stir, faces pressing against the paint, like moths against glass. Their whispers have grown louder, more insistent. They know what he intends to do. They want him to do it. With a bone needle, Elias pricks his thumb. A bead of blood swells black in the candlelight. He mixes it into the paint, just as he has done so many times before. But this time, his breath rattles. This time, his hands shake not from age, but from fear. The first stroke is agony. The brush drags across the canvas as though through tar. His joints scream. The paint burns. But he continues, stroke after stroke, layering his own face with trembling precision. The portrait's eyes blink, his eyes, and lock onto him with dreadful recognition. The air curdles. Behind him, the gallery erupts. Canvases bulge, frames splintering as dozens of hands strain toward him. The screams he has spent a lifetime ignoring now shake the walls. The floorboards warp, the very air thickening like wet oil. Elias tries to step back, but the portrait pulls. His reflection grins, wider than any living mouth could stretch. The canvas yawns open, a black maw edged in guilt. The hands of his victims seize him, not to stop him, but to push. The last thing Elias sees before the darkness takes him is his own face, young again, perfect, immortal, smiling back from the frame. Then silence. The studio stands empty. The brush clatters to the floor. On the easel, the finished portrait gleams with obscene vitality. Elias's eyes dart within the frame, frantic, furious. From the walls around him, 100 painted mouths twist into smiles, and the gallery grows quiet once more, waiting for the next visitor, for the next masterpiece. The auctioneer's gavel fell with a decisive crack, and just like that, the Vaughan estate, along with its infamous collection, belonged to a reclusive industrialist named Alistair Graves. The man had no interest in art, only in the macabre prestige of owning the cursed gallery whispered about in hushed tones across Europe. When the crates arrived at his manor, the servants refused to touch them. The wood was damp, though it hadn't rained in weeks, and from within came a sound like fingernails dragging across canvas. Graves dismissed their fears as superstition and ordered the paintings hung in the West Wing gallery, a long, velvet-draped hall perfect for his new obsession. That first night, the housekeeper swore she heard weeping, not from any room, from the walls. Graves's young daughter, Evangeline, a pale, curious thing of 12, was the first to see them move. She crept into the gallery at dusk, drawn by the way the moonlight made Elias Vaughan's self-portrait glisten like wet ink. As she reached out to touch it, the eyes rolled to meet hers. The other portraits shuddered in their frames. Lady Seraphine's mouth peeled open in a silent scream. A critic's painted hands slammed against the canvas. The once still gallery breathed, the air thickening with the scent of linseed oil and something metallic, something like old blood. Evangeline tried to run, but the floor warped beneath her. The walls stretched impossibly long, the exit slipping further away. Behind her, Elias's portrait leaned from its frame, skeletal fingers curling around the gilded edge. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the canvas yawning open, a doorway of teeth and oil and hunger. When Graves found the gallery at dawn, the only sound was the faint drip-drip of fresh paint pooling beneath his daughter's new portrait. Her eyes were still wet. And somewhere, deep in the manor, a brush clattered to the floor. Unseen. Waiting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.